Did you know that 57% of family caregivers of people who have Alzheimer's or a related dementia will wind up providing care for 4 years or more, and that about 40% of these caregivers suffer from depression? Welcome to the Surviving Alzheimer's podcast. I'm your host, Ken Cardita. In this podcast, I share with you my experiences and learnings from the last 13 years as I've walked by the side of my dear wife, Shanna, as she progresses through Alzheimer's disease. It is my desire that you'll find joy and peace while learning to live with your loved one's disease, and not let the disease define you or your loved one. The Surviving Alzheimer's podcast is brought to you by Ascending Minds, LLC. Welcome to episode 20 of the Surviving Alzheimer's podcast. Caregiver burnout is real. Today, we'll talk about the often harsh reality of caregiver burnout and stress. We'll review some of the studies that have revealed caregivers who do not maintain their health while caregiving and what the consequences might become. We'll also discuss 10 symptoms of caregiver stress. I'll tell you some of the stories from my journal and what I did in an attempt to relieve that stress, and also share some other things that you might want to try to relieve your stress. By the end of the episode, you'll be able to see and measure how stressed you are, and if you're on the path to caregiver burnout. Now, before we get started, as always, I'd like to share a reader comment. This comes from Christine Gold. She said, "I enjoyed this honest and heartwarming perspective. 6.5 million Americans have Alzheimer's. This is not going away, and we need to help and sharing all we can. Blessings to you, Ken and Shanna." Well, thank you, Christine. Let's get into some rather alarming statistics that I found when it comes to caregiving. This first set of statistics comes from the CDC, or the Center for Disease Control. 80% of the people with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias are receiving care in their homes. Each year, more than 16 million Americans provide more than 17 billion hours of unpaid care for family members and friends with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. Now, this information is from a few years back, and it's only getting worse. We can see just how widespread this is. So who's doing this caregiving? Approximately 2/3 of dementia caregivers are women. About 1 in 3, or 34%, are age 65 or older. Interestingly enough, about 25% of overall dementia caregivers are called the sandwich generation. These are caregivers that not only care for their aging parent, but also have children at home that they're raising that are under the age of 18. Let's take a look at what are some of the effects of doing this wonderful service of caregiving. How are they doing? Well, 60% of caregivers reported fair or poor health status, with one or more chronic conditions or a disability, compared to only about 30% of people who are not in the caregiving role. What I'm seeing from this, as a caregiver, we are twice as likely to develop a chronic health condition. What type of problems are we talking about? What type of health conditions? Caregivers report that these chronic conditions include heart attacks, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and arthritis, nearly at twice the rate of non-caregivers. About 40% of caregivers suffer from depression, whereas people their same age, only about 5 to 17% of non-caregivers suffer from depression. One of the most vulnerable groups are older caregivers. They may have their own chronic conditions or comorbidities, and coupled with the caregiving stress, this can be especially dangerous for older caregivers, like spouses. Seniors with their own chronic illness who are caregiving and have caregiving related stress have a 63% higher mortality rate than their non-caregiving peers. This is according to the American Psychological Association. Well, what about healthy caregivers? What effects does it have on them? Dementia caregiving increases mortality risks for healthy caregivers as well. Despite a significant lower risk of mortality, 18% of healthy spouses who are caregivers die before their partner with dementia. This is according to data from a 17-year study on health and retirement. This information is sobering, and I share it with you to make you aware of the dangers that exist if you ignore your own health and your own well-being while you're providing caregiving services for your loved one. Hopefully, I have your attention. And now I would like to share with you 10 symptoms of caregiver stress and share with you a little bit about what you can do about them. I'll also share some of my personal lessons learned along the way where appropriate. The first symptom is denial. Denial about the disease and the effects it's having on your loved one. You might tell yourself, I know mom is just going to get better. For me, Shanna was way too young for this. No one in her family had Alzheimer's. And I kept saying to myself, it must be something related with her lifelong struggle of depression. Can't be anything like Alzheimer's or anything like that. So in the very beginning, I was in some serious denial. And it did stress me out. Another symptom is anger. Now, this anger can be at your loved one who has Alzheimer's, or it could be frustration that he or she can't do the things they used to be able to do. If you catch yourself saying, well, he knows how to get dressed, or he knows how to do this or that. He's just being stubborn. We're not realizing that the disease is starting to take away the capabilities of doing things that they've been doing for years. For Shanna and myself, I would get angry when Shanna would not cooperate. When it came to taking her meds, asking her to go to the bathroom, or trying to get her to take a shower. And when I look at this anger that I would experience, the root cause of it was that I felt like I needed to control the situation. If I could get her to the bathroom on a regular basis, she'll never have an accident. If I can control things, I would not fear what's going to happen. I had a tremendous fear if she wouldn't take her medication and what behaviors might arise. Well, that happened a couple times. And yeah, she wasn't at her best, but it wasn't all the bad things that I had imagined. But the stress of just not getting her to take her meds on time used to really stress me out. The third common symptom is social withdrawal from friends and activities, or not wanting to do things that used to make you feel good. In other words, you might catch yourself saying, I really don't care about visiting my friends and neighbors anymore. I sure felt this during the COVID lockdown of 2020. We were very isolated, and it made it really difficult when it was just Shanna and myself for almost an entire year. We would see family members from time to time, but we were all trying to do our best to keep each other healthy in our family. It was really hard. Probably one of the biggest ones is anxiety. Anxiety about the future and facing another day. Asking questions like, what would happen when my loved one needs more care than I can provide? For me, I would have anxiety every morning when I would wake up and say, what version of Shanna am I going to be dealing with today? Is it going to be the happy-go-lucky cooperative wife that shows love and affection? Or is it going to be the frustrated Shanna who just thinks I'm here to boss her around and doesn't want any help? I had a lot of anxiety over that. Also, I would have anxiety throughout the course of our journey together over what is in the next stage, what will happen next. When will she start wandering? When will she fully lose her ability to communicate? I would have a lot of anxiety over all these things. The truth of the matter is they all happened. I had no control over them. I had to learn to accept them and deal with them. And I got better as time went on, as I changed my mindset and remembered that it is not Shanna. She's not trying to do any of this on purpose. She's just doing her best in managing her life when her brain functionality is deteriorating. Depression. Are you depressed? This depression can break your spirit and will dramatically affect your ability to cope with all of the things we have to cope with and deal with as a caregiver. You might catch yourself saying, I just don't care anymore. I just want to get through the day. For me, I have suffered and I continue to struggle with depression from time to time. And I'm depressed over losing my best friend and losing our retirement years together. I've caught myself saying we've been robbed of our golden years. But the truth of the matter is, again, once I changed my worldview on this and my perspective, we've had some great experiences and great tender moments. And so, while they might not be what I imagined or planned, we still have found joy and happiness from time to time. Along with depression, we can feel exhaustion. It is physically hard when you're caring for someone 24/7. It makes it nearly impossible to complete almost all of the daily tasks that you need to do. And the truth of the matter is you're too tired. For me, I would get exhausted each day. The thing that I struggled more than exhaustion was being, I would call, bored. That the routine of each day over and over and over, while routines were very good for Shanna, it just seemed like I couldn't tell what day it was at times, especially during COVID. We would get up, have breakfast, go on a walk, watch TV, rinse and repeat. It just seemed like it would never end. Sleeplessness. This is often caused by your anxiety and your never-ending list of concerns. It could also be because your loved one has a difficult time sleeping and they're sundowning and they're doing all kinds of things that will keep you awake. And this has a very dangerous cumulative effect. The longer this goes on, you get more exhausted, and the sleeplessness just drives all these other symptoms too. Now, for me personally, I never really had a problem sleeping while I was taking care of Shanna at home. Luckily for me, Shanna was pretty good about going to bed at a regular time and falling asleep and sleeping through most of the night. Where I did struggle with sleeplessness, believe it or not, was after I moved her to memory care. I would be home alone and I could not fall asleep. This lasted almost an entire year, that first year that she was in memory care. I was worrying about how she was doing. She really struggled in that first memory care facility. I was dealing with a lot of guilt and sadness and depression. My recipe for this was I would stay up till about 2 a.m. every night until I was able to just collapse into bed and fall asleep. That was not a healthy way to deal with it. I'm happy to say this last year, I've overcome that. Shanna's doing well. I don't worry about her. And I have adjusted to going to bed by myself. The next symptom of caregiver stress is irritability. And that will lead to moodiness and triggers negative responses in both you and your loved one. My wife would often say to me when I got impatient and irritable, "Stop bossing me around, leave me alone." And it wasn't until I stopped making it all about me and having to be this caregiver and starting to see things from Shanna's perspective. And when I started to have compassion for her, I would stop getting irritated. And when I stopped getting irritated, Shanna stopped getting triggered. The way you respond to your loved one has a huge impact on how they respond. You might find yourself with this next symptom, the lack of the ability to concentrate. And it might make it difficult for you to perform simple tasks. You may say to yourself, "I was so busy I forgot to go to this appointment," or something like that. For me, during the most intense and hardest parts of caring at home for Shanna, I actually started to have memory lapses. And at one point, I had so much anxiety over this, I thought that I might be showing early signs of dementia. I had some serious brain fog. And this was a result of being tired, being irritable, and some of these other things. Add to that the anxiety of thinking, "Oh, if I now start to have Alzheimer's, who's going to take care of us?" Luckily, I was able to get some help and respite relief, and I would get some rest and feel a little bit better, and the brain fog would go away. It didn't totally go away until this last year when I was more or less stress-free and started taking better care of myself by exercising and improving the food that I eat. And the last item I'd like to mention here on this list is health problems. You can develop health problems because all of this caregiving takes both a physical and a mental toll on you. If you catch yourself saying, "I can't remember the last time I felt good," or "I haven't been to the doctor in years," and you let yourself get worn down, this could lead to disastrous circumstances. For me, in the months before moving Shanna to memory care, I experienced yet again another large kidney stone. I won't bore you with the details, but I've had over 10 large kidney stones and 4 surgeries over the last 15 years. Thank goodness for most of the time taking care of Shanna, I did not have any, but at the very end, I required surgery. And I remember being in the hospital room and thinking if it wasn't for my daughter being in town, I'm not sure who would have been able to take care of Shanna while I was in the hospital for those couple of days. I'm sure I would have been able to scramble and find someone. But that brought home to me the fact that if I'm not well, how can I take care of her and how can I be her advocate? Now, if you are experiencing one or more of these stress symptoms on a regular basis, please, I invite you to make time and go talk to your doctor. Now, if your immediate response was, "Oh, I don't have time to take care of myself," I would like to remind you of what I call the airplane analogy. Every time we go fly on a flight, before we take off, what do the flight attendants tell us? They say, "In event of an emergency, put on your own air mask and then help the person next to you." This is so true in caregiving. How can you help your loved one if you are struggling and suffering and you're not at the top of your game? So, what can we do to deal with the stress of being a caregiver? The first step, which is often the hardest, is to ask for help. For me, I started with the mentality and frame of mind that I can do it all. I can take care of Shanna. I can provide for her. I've done it my whole life. I'm not working anymore. I can take good care of her. This was true, but this only lasts to a certain point. And as I did, it is very common for us to go well past the point when we should have gotten some help. For me, it was a little bit of being prideful. I finally broke that when some of Shanna's friends invited her out for lunch and took her out from time to time or came to our house and spent time with her. When I would be able to get away for just 1 or 2 hours, it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I even asked her sisters at times and my daughter to come visit and stay with us for a few days so that I can share the responsibilities of taking care of Shanna. It was such a blessing to have her sisters come and help because they got to spend some quality time with Shanna before Shanna lost her ability to communicate. Hiring part-time in-home caregivers was a lifesaver for me. And it actually extended my ability to take care of Shanna at home for almost another full year. Also, I was able to talk to people about what I was going through. My daughter would talk to me just about any time of day or night. I would call her and kind of lean on her, and she was a great listener. Also, my sister-in-laws were awesome. I could talk to them and confide in them and tell them how it really was. So those are some of the things that I was able to do. I will share with you some things that I found on the Alzheimer's.org or the Alzheimer's Association website. And I did some of these as well. Use relaxation techniques. There are several relaxation techniques that you can use to relieve stress. Now, I teach these in my coaching practice, and they are very effective. And they do take a little bit of time and practice, especially if you haven't done them. The first one is visualization. This is where you find yourself in a peaceful location, undisturbed. You close your eyes and you mentally picture a place or a situation that can bring you peace and calm you down. For me, it was Mission Beach, San Diego. We used to go there as a family and vacation on the beach in San Diego. So I would picture myself laying on the sand, staring at the waves coming in, and oftentimes I'd even play a recording of ocean waves on my phone to just try and calm down. Another thing that you can try is the practice of meditation. This can be as simple as just finding 15 minutes a day to let go of your stressful thoughts. You don't have to make this a full formal activity. You can just sit down in a quiet place and just monitor your breath and monitor your thoughts. If you find yourself having a stressful thought, just push it aside. Breathing exercises are great. Slow breathing and focusing on deep breaths are known to train your mind and your body to calm down. A simple way to do this is to take a deep breath, hold it, let it fully out, take a short pause, and repeat. Each of these steps maybe take 4 or 5 seconds each. If you do this for a couple of minutes, you will calm down. An interesting test that I did was I took my blood pressure while I was feeling stress and then did 5 minutes of deep breathing, and it lowered my blood pressure. So this does work. Another thing you might want to try, especially if you're having trouble falling asleep, is progressive muscle relaxation. This is where you start maybe at your toes and feet, you stretch them and relax them, and then work your way up your body and on your arms and all the way through your body so you just kind of tense up and release your muscles. This allows your body to just reset. One of the biggest stress relievers is physical activity, moving your body. And this is something that I practice quite a bit. And if I was to be honest with myself, this was what kept me from going over the edge during the hardest parts of caregiving. Even if you can just find 10 minutes a day to go on a walk with your loved one or on your own, do it. Take a walk. Do something you actually love. Garden, dance, sing. Any of these activities, when you involve movement, will help you. For me, I was very fortunate that my wife, Shanna, loved to go on walks. During the early and mid stages of her Alzheimer's, we would go for walks sometimes twice a day. We always walked in the morning. 4 or 5 years ago, we could walk for an hour to an hour and a half. And this would tire us both out enough so that we could just rest and enjoy the rest of the day. We'd even go on sunset walks in the evening. As time went on, Shanna's ability to go a long distance and for a long time reduced. These days, every time I visit her, I try and take her on a walk. And even if it's only less than a quarter of a mile up and down the parking lot of the memory care facility a couple of times, that's enough. And it's good for both of us. Another way to deal with this stress is to find time for yourself. Consider getting some respite care so you can spend time doing things that you enjoy. Now, respite care provides you with a temporary rest from being a caregiver, while the person with Alzheimer's disease continues to get care in a safe environment. For me, I was able to have friends come over and hire people over. If for whatever reason you don't have the resources to hire people, look to local churches. You can go onto the Alzheimer's organization website and look for people who are willing to serve in your neighborhood and maybe help you out. One thing to help you with anxiety is to become an educated caregiver. As the disease progresses, your caregiving skills need to grow. The Alzheimer's organization offers programs to help you better understand and cope with the behaviors and the personality changes that might happen to your loved one. There are support groups, there are Facebook groups, there are YouTube videos by Teepa Snow and Dr. Natalie Edmonds, the Care Blazers. I've mentioned them in previous podcasts. All those were invaluable resources to me. I learned so much from watching their videos. And of course, you might find it helpful to talk to other caregivers. You can do this through support groups. Now, this is one area that I blew it. I waited until I moved Shanna to memory care before I ever participated in my first support group. But I've been doing it now ever since, almost for 2 years. And it is a wonderful experience to be able to help people and be helped by people. Take care of yourself. If you don't take care of yourself, this is not going to have a happy ending for you. Visit your doctor on a regular basis. Try and eat well. Yes, grabbing some fast food is much easier and you don't feel like cooking a fresh meal. You can always go order a salad or eat something more healthy than fast food. Try and get as much rest as you can. Again, making sure that you're feeling healthy helps you to become a better caregiver. Now, this is often easier said than done, but realize it is important to take what you can get, because if you give up on this, you might become one of those caregiver statistics that we talked about earlier in the episode. Now, here's something that we all can do. Maintain your sense of humor. Now, keeping your sense of humor doesn't mean that you make light of the situation or you poke fun at it. No. Humor is a valuable coping strategy. Luckily for Shanna and me, this came very natural. One of the reasons I married Shanna was that she was always fun to be with. And she has never lost her sense of humor, even up until today. Whenever she would lose an ability or she would struggle, she'd get frustrated, but oftentimes she'd take it in stride. And we would find humor in it. And this would also help her not to feel embarrassed around me and around family members. And this also helped me not to obsess and worry about all the changes that were happening with her. This next one is something that is very important. It's called making legal and financial plans. Putting legal and financial plans in place as soon as possible is probably one of the most important things you can do. Having these plans in place can provide comfort for you and your loved one. Many documents can be prepared without the help of an attorney. However, if you're unsure how to do this, hire professional help. Now, I will tell you, I'm a retired engineer and I'm pretty good at this kind of stuff. When I looked into it, I was like, Ken, this is not the time to get the $50 will and power of attorney forms off the internet and struggle with it. I went to a competent elder care attorney that was recommended to me. And she was wonderful. She set us up with a whole package of everything we needed. And like most things in life, you get what you pay for. They were not cheap, but they were worth every dollar that we spent. And having all this paperwork in place just in the nick of time, because Shanna was able to sign all the documents and she knew what was going on, I slept much better once all these things were in place. The last thing I'd like to talk to you about is knowing what resources you might have available in your community. Are there adult day centers? Is there in-home assistance available? Are there service organizations through either churches or groups that want to give service that will allow for meal delivery or visiting nurses? If you go to the Alzheimer's organization website, alz.org, they have local chapters of the Alzheimer's organizations in most metropolitan areas. They also have a community resource finder on their website. They have a lot of good educational things, but they also can clue you into some of the things that might be available in your area. They also have a 24/7 helpline that you can call at any time. It's 800-272-3900. That phone number for the Alzheimer's hotline is 800-272-3900. They also have online communities and local support groups. I did use this hotline one time. It was a very difficult evening. Shanna was having some very difficult hallucinations. I was actually afraid for her. Once she was able to calm down a little bit, I was able to get away and call the hotline to help calm me down. And they gave me some good advice. So all of these things that I've mentioned are there for your help. Take advantage of something that will help you to relieve your stress. Now, we went over quite a bit in this episode. I'm sure it might feel quite overwhelming to you. If you haven't figured it out yet and come to the conclusion that caring for someone with Alzheimer's is intense and overwhelming, you will figure that out shortly. Eventually, you will come to know that this is a very difficult path that we are on, but it can be managed. So, what might you do to get started in this process? One sure way to fail is to try and do all these things all at once. Try and fix everything all at once. This never works. It only leads to further frustration and an increased sense of hopelessness and failure. Now, if you were one of my coaching clients or students, this is how I might work with you on this. I would invite you to do the following. When you have some quiet time, write down on a piece of paper a list of all the things that are causing you stress. Just list them all out. If needed, re-listen to this episode with pen and paper in hand. Now that you've got your list in hand of all the things that are giving you stress, the second step is see if you can group some of these items together and see if they're related to each other. Step 3, circle the top 5 things that are creating the most stress in your life at this moment. Step 4, look at these top 5 items. Pick 1 or 2 of them and think of something that you can do this week, maybe today or tomorrow even, that would reduce some of the stress given by this item. And then step 5 is do those things as soon as possible. Now, for the next few weeks on a weekly basis, repeat steps 4 and 5. In other words, pick something that you can do in one of these top 5 stress items that would help relieve some stress. And as you do this on a daily and weekly basis, you'll start to gain some momentum. You'll develop a habit of dealing with your stress rather than ignoring it. Now, as you progress, and maybe on a monthly basis, go back to your master list and see if anything else is popping up. You need to add something to your list or take something away, and pick a new top 5 and just kind of repeat this process. Now imagine if you would do this for a month, how that would affect you. Now imagine, what if you did it for 3 months and then 6 months? What if you did it for a year? Can you imagine yourself a year from now as you've been proactively doing things to combat the stress you're dealing with? Imagine how this would make you feel. One tip that I want to share with you on this is not to do this in isolation. If you do it all by yourself, it's more difficult. And if you enlist the help of a friend or a trusted family member, they can act as a sounding board and you'll have a sense of accountability to them. Now, when I coach students and clients, I focus on asking them questions rather than providing them solutions. I have found that when you answer a question, you will find your brain will tell you what the answer would be and what the best thing for you to do is. If you do this exercise on a regular basis and develop this habit of attacking your stress on a daily basis, just one thing at a time, doesn't have to be a big thing, you will move from a state of despair into a state of having a sense of hope that you can actually manage your stress because you're doing something about it on a daily basis. And if you do these things, the things that come up to you, your stress will be reduced. Also realize that as you try and do some of these things don't always go as planned. And it may cause you some more frustration. Realize this is just part of the process. Don't give up. Don't stop doing it. The more you are also willing to reach out for help, the more help will come your way, and you will no longer feel helpless. Now, if you know of a caregiver who is stressed out and on the road to burnout, would you please share this episode with them? If you are that caregiver, consider sharing this episode with your family and friends so that they may be able to get a better understanding of what you're going through and what you might need. The things discussed in this episode could also facilitate a productive conversation with a family member of yours who doesn't quite understand what's going on with your loved one or with you as a caregiver. Finally, I want to invite you to do something today, right now, as soon as you stop listening to this podcast. If you do something right now that will help you reduce your stress in one area, it will set you off on the path. Now, on our next episode, I think we'll take a little bit of a deeper dive into caregiver self-care. And I'll focus on some practical things that you might be able to do. As always, have a great day. And right now, go do something that will help you reduce your stress. Thanks for watching an episode of the Surviving Alzheimer's podcast. If you're new to this podcast, I recommend that you watch the first 13 episodes in order. That way you can learn about our backstory. This will make understanding later episodes much easier. To help you with this, I've created a playlist. It's called Surviving Alzheimer's Podcast in Order. That way you can listen to all the episodes in the order that they were created. The mission of the Surviving Alzheimer's Podcast is to educate and inspire caregivers, family, and friends who are on their own unique journey down dementia road with their loved one. I would really appreciate it if you could share this episode to anyone who you feel would benefit from it. Additional ways for you to help us reach others are to hit the like button for this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell to be notified of new episodes. All of these actions will encourage the YouTube algorithm to share this episode and podcast to other potential viewers.